Derek raised his beer can, the smugness serving as his uniform. "To Maya, our fireworks specialist!" Laughter erupted. Every face around the patio turned toward me, amused, practically proud of the joke. They didn't know the smell of burned earth that clings to your throat when you work under fire. They didn't know the absolute silence you hear when time stops between a cut wire and the confirmation that the explosion won't happen. And they certainly didn't know who Phoenix One was. I smiled anyway, because silence was easier to wear than the truth. But that night, as their laughter bounced across my uncle's backyard, I promised myself one thing. The next time they mocked me, I wouldn't stay silent. My name is Maya Vance, and that was the last summer I let anyone mistake quiet for weakness. The laughter rolled across the yard, warm and familiar, the kind that usually brought comfort. But that night, every chuckle felt like a nail driven deeper into a wall I was struggling to maintain. Derek was once again in the middle of a story about his strategic role in interior-based logistics. His words hung in the air like thick, suffocating humidity. No one looked my way, not even out of politeness. They didn't have to. Everyone already knew their version of me. I sat there, my hands clenched around a glass of ice water, my knuckles white. No one noticed. Maybe they'd forgotten I was there. The Vance family tradition, loud voices, louder pride, left no room for quiet ones like me. And silence had always been my cover. When Derek raised his glass toward his father, General Andrew Vance, pride lit up the older man's face, a former Marine Corps member. I watched them, father and son, such perfect mirrors of confidence and noise. For a moment, I wondered if there was ever space in this family for someone who didn't need applause to prove her worth. The smell of chlorine from the pool reached me before I realized I'd walked away. The laughter faded behind me, replaced by the soft lapping of the water. I stood there, barefoot on the cool tiling, and made a quiet promise under my breath. One day, the silence that kept me invisible would break. Not with anger, with truth. I grew up in a family where they believed three things maintained order: stay discreet, work hard, and never expose your weaknesses. I had broken all three before I turned 30. In our circle, my Uncle Roland's name meant strength, medals, and stories that men told with respect. He was the legend. Derek, his son, was the heir to that aura. And I, the Combat Engineer EOD specialist, was the polite afterthought, the footnote in their conversations. They loved to talk about heroes, but never to the ones sitting at their table. I let them. Words were dangerous when the truth you carried was stamped classified. Still, some nights, the memories crept in like the tide, the red flare, the radio crackling with panic. "We're pinned down, Phoenix One. Do you copy?" And my own voice, answering, steady and low, "Copy. I'm not leaving you behind." Weeks later, back at the base, my commanding officer spoke quietly, almost reluctantly. "General Vance owes you his son's life. He knows it was you." I froze. So that was the truth hiding in plain sight. The man who raised Derek's pride on a pedestal had a debt to me. He knew. He had chosen silence. For his son, for his name, perhaps to preserve the family myth. But the price was mine. That evening, sitting alone, watching the moon, I realized the calm no longer comforted me. It weighed down, heavy as dust in an open wound. If Roland wanted silence, then I would choose the opposite. The moon was already high when I found the general on the porch, a glass of scotch in his hand, his eyes fixed on the stars. He didn't turn when he spoke. "Thank you, Maya. I know you were Phoenix One on Operation Steel Framework." The words hit like a jet of sand, fast, burning, and gone. "I just did my job," I said softly. "But you could have said something, just once." He sighed. "I didn't want Derek to feel small, but by staying silent about you, I made myself smaller instead." He didn't argue, just nodded. "My squad still owes you a great deal, but in the Corps, we don't say thank you out loud, we just remember." I studied him. This man who had built his life on command and silence. He wasn't cruel. He was trapped in the logic of men his age, where admission is weakness. Keep your silence if it keeps you comfortable, I said. But the next time someone laughs at me, I won't stay quiet. Roland finally looked at me, his expression softening. Good, he said. You've earned that right. I went back to the party, the noise distant. I knew it would be the last summer my silence protected anyone but me. 2 years later, I came home. The confidence I'd earned in the field didn't seem to fit the family backyard. The smell of barbecue, the same jokes, the same voices. Nothing had changed, except me. Derek stood near the grill, already performing. He raised his can. Welcome home, Major Vance. I hear the Army keeps you busy with reports and plans. The laughter cracked like a gunshot. I smiled and answered, calm but sharp. It depends on the pressure applied to the detonator. The noise thinned to silence. Even the leaves seemed to stop. General Vance looked up, worry and nascent respect crossing his face at once. Derek continued, clearly oblivious to the tension. At least they're clean missions, not like the real stuff. I put down my glass. Some of us work where there are no do-overs. The words hung there, sharp and final. I stood up and walked toward the darkest corner of the yard, the general's gaze on me, heavy as a sandbag. The storm was no longer in the sky. It was at that table, waiting. It was the general's birthday party. The former Marine brothers, neighbors, family, all gathered. Derek was at the center, loud and shining, recounting his business successes as if they were battle victories. When he saw me, he raised his glass with that arrogant smile. Look, Commander, still playing dominoes with wires? Laughter rippled through the crowd. I leaned toward him, my eyes locked on his. Still flying, Derek, just not as low as you think. An old friend of the general, a retired colonel, cut in. You're military too? Sweetheart, what's your call sign? Derek smirked. Yeah, let's hear it. Maybe silk thread? I scanned their faces, each one waiting for me to play along. I took a breath. Phoenix won. The laughter evaporated. The colonel paled. Wait, you were the EOD specialist on Operation Steel Framework? General Vance stood up, his shoulders squared, command filling his voice like wind filling a sail. Derek, apologize. Now. Derek blinked, arrogance replaced by nervousness. Dad, it's just a joke. Apologize for what? The general's voice cut through the crowd. For mocking the officer who saved your brother's squad, including your brother. The color drained from Derek's face. You mean her? She walked over improvised explosive devices so our Marines could come home, the general said. And you mock her. When Derek whispered, I didn't know. I stood still in the silence that followed. The air hummed with truth. Derek finally said, I'm sorry, Maya. It's fine, I replied, but we both knew it wasn't. The general's eyes met mine, heavy with shame and pride. He reached into his pocket, placed a brass challenge coin in my palm. To the one who walked where others wouldn't dare. You earned this years ago. I should have given it to you then. Later, the general stopped near my car. He was no longer the general, just a man. You shouldn't have had to wait for me to speak up for you, he said. But I did, I replied. He handed me a folded mission report, Operation Phoenix. My name was on it, crossed out with thick lines of ink. They classified everything, but we never forgot your call sign. He took a deep breath, his eyes glossy. I thought silence would protect you. I was wrong. It only protected my ego and Derek's. He pulled another coin from his pocket, old and worn. This one is from my team. We kept it for the day we could finally thank you, right? I held both coins, the metal shining under the streetlight. We're good, General. Just don't stay silent again. He nodded. No more silence. 3 years after that night, I stood on the tarmac at Bagram. Sunlight reflected off rows of metal and brass. I had been summoned to receive the Distinguished Service Medal. This time it wasn't a secret. When I scanned the crowd, I froze. General Vance was there, in his dress uniform. He had never shown up at anyone's ceremony before, ever. When the applause faded, he walked toward me. "You wear the uniform better than any of us," he said. Then he straightened his back and saluted. The crowd stilled. I returned the salute. No words were needed. This was the acknowledgement that had taken 10 years to arrive. That night, my phone buzzed. "Saw the video. You deserved it. Proud of you." Derek's message, short, honest. Enough. The reflection on the metal blurred as my eyes filled. Not with pain, but peace. 2 generations, 1 salute. Finally, no more silence between us.